Greetings, dear students. As a reminder, we began this course by describing three main circles of identity that influence us: peoplehood, Zionism, and Israeliness. Today, we will analyze Zionism. We will see how Zionism brings out new dimensions of identity and how the Zionist movement reshaped the Jewish people from the 1800s until today. Zionism is the largest of the three circles, with millions of people worldwide calling themselves Zionists. Thus, America's President Joe Biden, at the White House Hanukkah candlelighting ceremony in 2023, just weeks after October 7th, declared, "You don't have to be Jewish to be a Zionist, and I'm a Zionist." Biden correctly defined a Zionist as one who supports the sovereign, independent existence of the Jewish people in the State of Israel. Nevertheless, attitudes toward Zionism were and continue to be complex. Especially today, we're experiencing waves of global anti-Zionism. There are even Jews who don't consider themselves Zionists. Some are ultra-Orthodox like Satmar Hasidim. Some are secularists who oppose the existence of the State of Israel or simply prefer diaspora life ideologically. They won't even call life outside of Israel diaspora. What drives these clashes? And how did Zionism change the Jewish people and Jewish peoplehood so dramatically? Zionism begins with the Bible. When Abraham and Sarah ascended to the land of Canaan, meaning the land of Israel, about 4,000 years ago, they made Israel the Jewish people's homeland. From this moment on, every Jew who left Israel, who never made it there, lived in galut, exile, cut off from the promised land. Even after thousands of years, when most Jews lived scattered in different countries worldwide, Jews continued to pray toward Jerusalem, the historic capital of the Jewish people. At every Jewish wedding, you could hear the vow, "If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, may my right hand forget its functioning. Im eshkachech Yerushalayim." When the writer Shai Agnon received the 1966 Nobel Prize for Literature, he recalled his life before moving to Israel. As a result of the historic catastrophe in which Titus of Rome destroyed Jerusalem and Israel was exiled from its land, I was born in one of the cities of the exile, he said. But I always regarded myself as one who was born in Jerusalem. What did Agnon mean? In the year 70 CE, as the Roman Empire crushed the Jews' long rebellion, the Romans destroyed the Second Temple and exiled most Jews from the land of Israel. Nevertheless, throughout the exile, a small Jewish community continued to live in the land of Israel, especially in the four holy cities, Jerusalem, Hebron, Tzfat, and Tiberias. For 1900 years following the destruction, Jews lost their peoplehood anchor. Nevertheless, scattered globally, functioning independently, Jews established a network of communities connecting via trade ties, shared religious rituals, communal obligations, and the common turn when praying toward Jerusalem. From a people mostly living in one vital center, the Jews evolved to live amid a global network. If we jump to the 18th and 19th centuries, we see modernity and nationalism rise in Europe. At the time, most Jews live in Europe, where the Haskalah, Enlightenment, and the emancipation emerged. These modernizing movements gave Jews equal rights in some countries. Some even felt free enough to leave their ghettos. But these were confusing times. Modernizing Jews remained connected to the Jewish people, while also feeling proud as citizens of the lands where they lived. They identified as French, as English, as German, with some emerging as passionate patriots. This challenging revolution triggered long debates about the true meaning of Jewish identity. Is it a religion? A nation? How do you juggle your different identities? Many of the Jews anxious to be accepted as citizens with equal rights ultimately couldn't maintain both identities. Often, non-Jews accepted them as long as they abandoned Judaism and the Jewish people. As a result, some Jews simply assimilated into the general culture. Nationalism emerged as one popular response to these confusing and revolutionary times. The Italians formed an Italian nation. The Americans transformed a nation of immigrants into a liberal democratic powerhouse. And some Jews began to form a national identity based on their sense of peoplehood. But despite all these hopes, waves of anti-Semitism washed over Europe, betraying many Jews who believe in modernity. The Russian pogroms of 1881 to 1882 in particular helped trigger a mass migration of Jews from Eastern Europe to America. Those immigrants found a surprisingly welcoming country that spawned today's thriving Jewish center in America. And yet, despite the prayers and aspirations of generations before them at the time, only a small marginal minority moved to Israel. At this moment, suddenly, a new, unique force appears in the Jewish world. Theodor Herzl, a journalist, a lawyer. Herzl lives the comfortable life of the assimilated Austro-Hungarian Jew. But his encounters with anti-Semitism, even in enlightened Europe, stir a sense of Jewish nationalism within. He sees the great opportunity to solve the Judenfrage, the Jewish problem. Herzl invites 200 representatives from throughout the Jewish world to Basel in 1897. This first Zionist Congress launches the official Zionist movement. Zionism defines the Jewish people as a nation, with collective rights to establish a Jewish state in the land of Israel, their historic homeland. What was Herzl's new revolutionary conception for the Jewish world? Zionism views the wandering Jews' situation as abnormal. It's impossible to juggle the dueling obligations to current home and eternal homeland. Moreover, the Jews' ambiguous and vulnerable status inevitably led to persecution. Herzlian Zionists said, if the Jewish people return to their homeland and to sovereignty, they will be able to function in healthy ways, growing and prospering and mastering their own destiny far away from Jew haters. The vision of reviving the Jewish people in their homeland was path-breaking. Most Jews at the time couldn't imagine such a radical break from their misery. Nor was it easy to conceive of themselves outside their now familiar framework as a global network of communities interacting, even innovating with different cultures, while always preserving their unique identity and destiny. For many, the cross currents of exile had become part of the greatness and uniqueness of Judaism and the Jewish people. The Zionists hoped to end the exile and create a new reality. Well, essentially, it was Alt Neu, an old new reality. Their new movement would return the Jews to living in one homeland where they could thrive individually and collectively as a sovereign people at home. Of course, not all Jews agreed. Some religious thinkers believed that exile was a punishment God imposed on the Jewish people, leaving it to God and only God to redeem the people. Redemption, these religious sages insisted, should come from heavenly hands, not human actions. Other rabbis mistrusted these secular revolutionaries. How could those who abandoned Judaism save the Jews? Others opposed this return to Zion because of their political or civic loyalties elsewhere. They wanted to preserve the Jewish people as a scattered network, interacting with others. Following the horrific Holocaust that almost destroyed the Jewish people, a new consensus emerged. Most Jews realized after World War II the need to establish an independent, safe homeland for the Jewish people. Especially with the State of Israel's establishment in 1948, the land of Israel once again became the Jewish center of gravity. Initially, most Jews still lived scattered in the diaspora. But as Israel grew and what they called ingathered the exiles from dozens of countries, it rebalanced the equation. Today, about half of the Jewish people live in Israel, and the other half live in a network of different communities, particularly in North America, South America, and Europe. We could then frame Jewish history in this way. First, in the days of King David and King Solomon, most Jews lived in the land of Israel under sovereign, independent Jewish leaders. In the second period, the period of exile following the First Temple's destruction in 586 BCE, and particularly during the long exile after the Second Temple's destruction, the Jewish people created the global network of communities. Now, in this third period, since Israel's establishment and growth, the Jewish people are split demographically, with nearly half in Israel and nearly half elsewhere, although a significant majority of Jews worldwide still define themselves as Zionists, not merely pro-Israel. This confusion, actually, the very complexity and richness of Jewish identity today, raises many compelling questions about the nature and mission of the Jewish people. Do Jews function best at home, in their reconstituted center, or worldwide, or both? This debate continues in Israel and throughout the diaspora. Nevertheless, it's clear that Zionism not only succeeded in establishing a thriving, democratic Jewish state, but it revitalized Israel as identity headquarters for most Jews, no matter where they live. And think about it. In November 2023, when 390,000 Jewish and non-Jewish Zionists gathered to rally for Israel in Washington, D.C., and sang Hatikva, the Jewish national anthem, it was clear that the hope and the anchoring and the Am, the Jewish people, had returned to the land of Zion and Jerusalem.